Hello, and welcome to Hopeful Consciousness and day 4 of my 2-week challenge to hopefully help you have a spiritual awakening moment, or just help you spiritually along your path. So I join you from the sunny delights of my living room with the wooded wallpaper here. So I hope you're having a good evening. After I learnt about how to meditate from effectively like an Eastern yogi, I practiced that for quite some time. Really started to delve into some of the scientific parts after that. So I was looking at Dr. Bruce Lipton's things online, particularly quite a few things to do with the subconscious mind and how that works and plays in with things. And then I started reading or listening to a book on Audible called The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters. So I really, again, recommend having a listen or read of that one. It's more often associated with the personal development world, about how to control the kind of monkey mind inside your head. So let me just sort of give you a brief rundown of what the book talks about. It basically describes that you have 3 people almost inside of you. You've got the human part of you, which is responsible for thriving, and doing well in this world. You've got the monkey part of your mind, which is the very often emotional side, purely driven by your survival. And then you've got the computer. And the computer is almost like our memory bank, and it's also like our subconscious mind, and it can sometimes also develop gremlins. And that can be through our childhood as we grow up and our belief systems. So what can often happen is you get a belief that's brought up through some incident in your childhood or something like that. Say, for example, you saw your 2 parents arguing over money problems quite often. You might then develop some very negative beliefs about money. Money's evil, it causes arguments and things like that because you've seen your parents argue about that situation. And that can be a bit of a gremlin in your programming, because that later in life, the moment you get money, it might then make you spend it to get rid of it. And you can end up with bad spending habits as a result of that. It might sound a bit weird from a spiritual point of view to look at this, but I'll delve a bit deeper into the workings of this. So you've got the monkey mind, which is the often the part that has the outburst, the emotional outburst when someone does something that might offend you. Say you're in traffic or driving along and someone cuts you up on the road. We've all seen those examples of road rage on TV and things like that, where someone just goes nuts for some small incident. And you think, what has got into them? And it's just their monkey going wild, basically. So your monkey will have that initial emotional outburst. And then following on from that, it's up to you as to how you kind of almost control that monkey. Your human part is going to want to try and do something to stop that outburst going any further. So it might try a boxing technique, which that he talks about in the book. So if you're in a safe environment, you can let the monkey vent. If you're in your car, you can just go, blah, 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 beep, beep, beep. Have that moment and then just like, okay, I'm done. Or sometimes if you've already got a program in your computer to how to deal with that, you can just run the program. So you might have really strongly developed a subconscious program that basically says, it's probably he's having a bad day and he's upset, let's not worry about it, and you just get on with your day. You can also try distraction techniques of, look over there, monkey, ignore what that guy did, this is more important, sort of thing. So there's different techniques you can use to sort of cope with the monkey mind, and it tries as well to tell you that the emotions that you're experiencing from that are not your own, and they're generated by this monkey mind, and you don't have to feel guilty about it as well. And I'm going to go a step further and link this to more of Bruce Lipton and Sadhguru stuff. and say the thoughts in your mind are not your responsibility. Now that might sound a bit of a weird thing to say, but I'm going to show you how little control you have over your mind in just a second. So I'm going to show you an object, and you've got to try your hardest not to think about what that object is. Do not blurt out the name in your mind, absolutely under any circumstances. Do not blurt out in your mind that this is a tennis ball. Did you do it? Or did your mind just go, tennis ball, the moment it saw it on the screen? So now, even though you're aware of all that stuff, here we go. You've got total control over your mind. So you're absolutely going to say that this is not an apple. And it just makes you think for a moment, hang on a sec, I can't even stop my brain having this, or my mind having this really basic thought of naming an object when it's put in front of me. I mean, I'm not even at that level. That takes a real deep level of understanding to be able to get to that point where you can really switch off that instinctual mental process. But also, you should not feel guilty for the fact that your mind might do that. I mean, we're talking about tennis balls here, but your mind might see something and suddenly get a guilty feeling. It might suddenly get a jealous feeling, you know, an angry feeling and things like that. And you've got to realize that those emotions that are surfacing are not your responsibility, in terms of you did not generate those consciously within yourself. The monkey brain part of your body, part of your mind did. And I'm going to take that a step further as well. So if you look at Bruce Lipton's work, he often says, give me a child till the age of 7 and I'll show you the man. In the same way, you get a lot of limiting beliefs and things like that as you grow up, which we only really start to uncover probably a little bit later on as we become an adult. But that's because when we're born, we're in basically a theta sort of brainwave state up until the age of about 7, which most of us would relate to as a hypnotic state. So yes, your child up to the age of 7 is in a purely, mostly hypnotic state. They're not particularly conscious at a deep level. They're mostly just absorbing like a sponge everything that's thrown to them, because we're brought up in really complex societies with huge numbers of rules, and they need to know those rules. So they just have to accept it. You know, what their parents tell them of, no, don't steal that other boy's candy or something like that. They just have to accept that that is a bad action and not to do it. And you give them repeated examples of why that's the case. But that's going to program their subconscious mind into having these beliefs and having this sort of value system as well. So you can genuinely get to a point where the thoughts that your mind is generating are nothing to do with your conscious behavior at all. You've had no control about what's gone into your head between the ages of 0 and 7, virtually nothing, you know. So your thoughts are generating, your mind is generating these thoughts that's been instilled in you by society, your environment, your parents, and and the different belief systems that were imposed upon you. You can see that in just the way that children, say in the UK, are brought up to, I don't know, children over in Japan, for example. Different culture, different environment. They have different values that are instilled into them. So they will respond in a different way in different situations. So it's getting that detachment from the fact that I didn't necessarily generate that thought. I had no choice in what was pumped into there from a young age. So I really don't need to feel guilty about having the thought in any way, shape or form. And the same, the corresponding emotion that crops up in your body. So initially, when you have a thought, your emotions are generated as a result of, say, I feel anxious or depressed because of a situation in my outside environment. Now that's fine for a short period of time, but say you have that for a prolonged period, you start to program your body with that emotion. This is talking about some of Joe Dispenza's stuff. You start to program your body with that emotion, and then when the external stimulation that's caused that feeling in the first place is gone, it actually works in the exact opposite. Now your body is generating that feeling that is putting your mind into a depressed and anxious state, even though there's nothing in the environment that causes that. So again, it's following what Sadhguru talks about, in that you create that distance between your thoughts and your emotions, and that they are not your own, and you don't have to feel responsible for them. You know, this brain here was potentially concocted through evolutionary means or something else, which we can get into later, over potentially millions of years. And it's not your place to try and stop this huge, amazing mechanism in your mind from generating these thoughts, which are amazing, often problem-solving, creative, fantastic thoughts that can really help the world, compared to, say, a cat or a dog that has very little, conscious creativity in that way. It's not your job to try and silence that, particularly in meditation and stuff like that. You can't silence millions of years of evolution. Or sorry, I won't use the word can't. You potentially can, but it's not necessarily your place to hit that with a big hammer and say, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to relax. That's not your something that you should worry about. Just let it do its thing. Literally go and let it have its bizarre little thoughts and go in its funky little loops. Just don't pay any attention to it, because that's the bit that you do control. It's your conscious awareness. It's that point of attention and things like that. So yeah, coming back to the chimp paradox in the book, I highly recommend that one. It's a really great starting point to see some of the scientific points of view. Again, Dr. Bruce Lipton on YouTube, and I'll probably go into a bit of his stuff in further videos soon. But don't worry about your reaction you have to things. There's techniques and stuff that these books and other things that can teach you of how to deal with your chimps and things like that. But don't feel responsible that you've had a thought in a certain way, you've had an emotion in a certain way. That's not necessarily you. That's just this doing what it's been programmed to for hundreds of thousands of years, potentially even more. So cool. I hope you join me for day 5 tomorrow, and have a good evening. Good night.